To subscribe to our channel, press the subscription button, like this video, share it, and leave a comment. I wasn't planning on opening the door in my bathrobe. I had just taken a shower. My hair was still wet, and I smelled of lavender soap. I thought I would spend the whole day alone. My husband, Daniel, had left for a business trip, something sudden and work-related, and he wasn't supposed to return until Sunday evening. The knock on the door came while I was folding a towel. It was soft and measured, like the knock of someone who didn't want to disturb. I looked through the peephole and blinked. It was Pastor Elijah. Of course I let him in. He smiled, as always, benevolently and calmly, as if he knew something the rest of us didn't. I pulled my robe tighter and gestured for him to come in. "Pastor, this is a surprise." He said he was just in the neighborhood and decided to stop by. He mentioned that Daniel had brought up the trip in passing after church last week, and he thought it would be a good time to pray with me. That's how he put it. To pray with you. At first it didn't seem strange. He had been to our house many times for dinners, birthdays, and sometimes just to visit. He was more of a friend to us than a pastor. At least, that's how it felt. We sat on the couch and talked a little about church affairs, about how tired I looked, and about how long it had been since Daniel and I had taken time for ourselves. He noticed the little things. Not in a creepy way. At least, not then, just attentive. At one point, I laughed too loudly at something he said. I don't even remember what exactly, something minor and harmless, but it lingered between us. His gaze didn't leave my face right away. There was a flash, quick and barely noticeable, but I caught it, and I didn't say anything. I just tucked my legs under myself and nodded as if I hadn't noticed. Then he asked, "May we pray?" We stood up, and he took my hands. His grip was warm and reassuring. He closed his eyes and began to speak quietly about strength, temptation, and loneliness. And somewhere in the middle of it, I felt something shift. I was no longer praying. I was listening to his voice, the space between us, the way his thumbs gently moved across the backs of my hands. When he opened his eyes again, I didn't pull away. It was still quiet. I don't know how long we stood there like that. I don't even remember taking a step forward, but I must have, because suddenly we were closer. Close enough for me to catch a faint hint of mint on his breath. Close enough to feel the warmth of his chest. He reached up and brushed a wet strand of hair from my face. I let him, and in that moment, I should have stopped it. His fingers lingered for a second longer as he tucked that strand of hair behind my ear. I could feel my heartbeat quicken, steadily but undeniably. It wasn't what he did, it was what he didn't do. He didn't step back. He didn't pretend it meant nothing. And neither did I. I told myself it was innocent, that I was just grateful someone noticed me, cared enough to check in, to truly see me, instead of just passing by me in the kitchen, calling from another room, or asking if I had paid for the internet. Elijah looked at me as if I were standing still in a world moving too fast, as if I still deserved a pause. "Would you like some tea?" I asked. But my voice came out soft, a little breathless. I hated how obvious it sounded, but he nodded as if he hadn't noticed. "Tea sounds good," he said, and followed me into the kitchen. I moved around the counter, busying myself with the kettle and mugs, pretending I didn't feel the weight of his gaze on me. But I did. I felt it all along my spine, like a slow, pulling sensation. I adjusted the tie on my robe again. It wasn't even coming undone. I just needed something to do with my hands. He leaned against the doorway, watching silently. "You always smell like something gentle," he said after a moment. "Like clean linen or rain or peace." He laughed quietly, then looked down, as if perhaps he hadn't meant to say it out loud. I didn't know what to do with that. No one had said anything like that to me in years. Daniel loved me, of course. But there is a difference between love and attention. Sometimes they go hand in hand. Sometimes they drift apart. When the kettle whistled, I nearly jumped. I poured the tea, my hands shaking slightly, and placed his mug on the counter. He took it. His fingers touched mine again. Our eyes met. There was so much space between what was right and what we were doing, and it was narrowing with every passing second. I could have stepped back, I could have changed the subject, I could have excused myself to go change, but I didn't. I stayed there, still barefoot, still damp from the shower, robe pulled tight around me, but suddenly feeling paper thin. He took a sip of tea. Then unexpectedly he said, "Has Daniel told you recently how lucky he is?" I blinked. "We don't really talk like that anymore." "Why not?" I opened my mouth but didn't know what to say. What could I tell him? That Daniel and I had grown apart? That our conversations had turned into to-do lists? That the passion we once had was now buried under dishes, bills, and early bedtimes? Instead, I just said, "I don't know." He took a step closer, not touching me. Not yet, but closer than necessary for a casual cup of tea. "I'm sorry," he said, and it sounded genuine. "It must be lonely." That word cut deeper than I expected. I swallowed hard. Sometimes that was enough. Just that one word. His hand rose again, gently, slowly, and touched my face. Unhurried, not forced, just there. Warm and steady. "I would never." He began, then stopped. "I mean, I know how this looks. And I would never disrespect your marriage or you. I just care more than I probably should." I felt it again. That thumping in my chest. That electric stillness between us. "Elijah." I said his name as a warning, but there wasn't much weight behind it. "I should go," he said, but he didn't move. "You should," I agreed. But I didn't move either, and then we both laughed, a quiet, breathless laugh, almost as if we were afraid someone else might hear, even though the house was completely silent. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and in that moment, there was so much left unsaid.